Welcome back to Soul Ascension Insights. My name is Dave and I'll be your host. In the first two episodes, I spoke about different aspects of near-death experiences. And in this episode, we'll talk about karma. With that said, let's get started with episode number 3, titled Near-Death Experience, Life Review, and Karma. In September of 1975, Danny Brinkley was 25 years old, living in South Carolina, and the hometown bully everybody loved to hate, and that's exactly how he liked it. To put it kindly, he was not a nice guy on any level. He was talking to a friend on a landline phone during a thunderstorm when a bolt of lightning streaked through the phone line, entering his ear, carving a path of melted flesh and bone as it burned its way through his entire body, down his spine, and out the bottom of his feet. The jolt was so powerful that it instantly propelled him off the floor straight up, where he crashed into the ceiling before falling to the floor dead. The only thing that ultimately saved him was the continuous CPR conducted by his girlfriend Sandy, best friend Tommy, ambulance crew, and the hospital emergency room before the ER staff pronounced him dead and pushed the exam table he was on into the hall and covered him with a sheet. Here is what Danny saw and felt after he died. Quote, "From my vantage point near the ceiling, the vibrant kaleidoscope of living color that emanated from Tommy and Sandy astonished me. In fact, as I glanced around the room, everything seemed to be literally alive and vibrating with color. Even the wooden chest of drawers in the corner radiated a multi-hued energy. I would no longer take for granted the unique and beautiful spiritual life force flowing through every creation in the physical world. I then found myself enveloped by a shimmering blue-gray vastness of a whirling tunnel. I was quickly transported through space feet first, as though I was lying on an invisible conveyor belt. At this point, I saw a light at what appeared to be the end of this swirling vortex. I suddenly found myself standing inside the light. In fact, the light and I were one. I felt safe and complete, perhaps for the first time in my life. The light was alive, and it infused me with its warmth and cradled me in what I sensed to be a sanctuary of all-encompassing love and acceptance. The experience was beyond exhilarating. Through a thick yet translucent mist of iridescent silver, a being of extraordinary light materialized before my eyes. As it seemed to float towards me, I became more loved, treasured, and cherished the closer it got. The being scooped me up like a huge embrace, and an immediate panoramic life review started, and it was skillfully produced and directed to remind me of my first 25 years of less than stellar behavior. I was mortified as I watched the movie of my life unfold. I'd hurt so many people and acted out in so many cruel and ugly ways. As the scenes played out and often ended painfully, I was not myself. I was every person I had interacted with along the way. I experienced exactly what they felt as I relived their encounter with me. Viewing my actions in this way, others had viewed them now evoked tremendous shame and guilt within me. Very quickly, I wished I had spent my life being a kinder and more loving person." End quote. Some might have thought that Danian would be punished for his life of cruelty to others. Here is a profound lesson I've learned from my study of near-death experiences. The universe does not recognize the difference between good and bad behavior. Therefore, we must. It is up to us, for within us resides the innate knowing of right and wrong. We incarnate on earth for the expressed purpose of learning to master the proper execution of our pre-existing spiritual wisdom, knowing right from wrong, and when the life ends, we will act as our own judge and jury. Here is another interesting observation from Danian. Quote, "It was as though the review had not only shown me the error of my ways, but it had also cleansed my soul of shame and sadness. It seemed as though reliving and acknowledging my dreadful mistakes signified my spiritual redemption." End quote. Now here is where karma comes in. The definition of karma is, quote, "the sum of a person's actions in this existence, viewed as deciding their fate in future existences," end quote. Put another way, karma is the law of cause and effect, or even more simply, what goes around comes around. Let's get back to Danian's story. Quote, "What I did not know is that I would be going back to the awful life I had just reviewed, and I was going to have to face the consequences of every miserable act of cruelty and thoughtlessness I'd perpetrated. For truly, each choice we make in life creates consequences we will eventually have to face." End quote. If we fail to learn and practice love, forgiveness, and compassion in this lifetime, we will be subject to the wheel of karma and have to reincarnate and try again through another lifetime. If we master the practice of love, forgiveness, and compassion, we have the opportunity to end our earthly incarnations and move to a higher plane of existence. Here is another poignant observation from Danian's story. Quote, "These advanced beings emphasized that our highest human potential cannot be reached until we remember that we are great and powerful spiritual beings. In heaven, we are considered heroes just because we were valiant enough to leap fearlessly into the great adventure called life on earth. Leaving the spiritual kingdom in order to be born in the dense physical domain of earth required immense fortitude and unshakable faith. For that reason, the beings view us with the highest regard and compassion, no matter the outcome of our incarnation." End quote. Let's end with one last word from Danian. Quote, "The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital hallway floating above my body without a clue as to how to get back into that thing. It was stiff and cold, with no visible entrance sign or even a chimney to shimmy down. Dumbfounded, I hovered there thinking, I'd had about enough adventure and intrigue for one day, and this situation was working my last nerve. A split second after that thought, I found myself looking up at the white sheet covering my body, unable to move or speak. But realizing that I was breathing, I started blowing up at the part of the sheet covering my head. My friend Tommy was standing guard over my body, saw the sheet moving, and notified hospital staff that I had survived." End quote. I've only touched on the amazing events Danian Brinkley experienced during his near-death experience. More is relayed in his book, Secrets of the Light. And there was even a TV movie of the week made about his experience titled Saved by the Light, starring Eric Roberts. Both are worth checking out. Thanks for joining me for episode number 3 of Soul Ascension in Science. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'll leave a book and media list below for those who wish to explore the topic further. Thanks again, and I'll be back with more episodes.